First contact fallout. The anomaly appeared on Tuesday morning, interrupting Dr. Maya Chen's coffee break at the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico. The radio telescope's monitoring system flagged something massive moving into the solar system at speeds that defied conventional physics. By Wednesday, observatories worldwide confirmed the readings. By Friday, the UN Security Council was in emergency session, and by Monday, humanity was no longer alone in the universe. Admiral Sarah Okafor stood on the bridge of the UES Resilience, Earth's newest and most advanced spacecraft. At 53, she had expected to spend her final years in service overseeing training missions, not making first contact with an alien civilization. The small fleet behind her represented the best Earth could muster on short notice. 6 military vessels from various nations, hastily united under the United Earth Space Force banner. "They're hailing us, Admiral," Communications Officer Raj Patel reported, his voice remarkably steady given the circumstances. On screen, Okafor commanded, straightening her uniform. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a being that looked almost disappointingly humanoid. Gray-skinned with iridescent scale-like patterns across its face, 4 eyes arranged vertically, and what appeared to be gill slits along its neck. It wore an elaborate uniform of blue and silver, adorned with symbols that seemed to shift when viewed directly. "I am Grand Overseer Zilith of the Galactic Consortium," the alien announced in perfect English. "Your primitive world has been designated as Territory 9742, eligible for Category 3 integration into our civilization. Prepare your leadership for immediate submission protocols and resource allocation assignments." Admiral Okafor blinked twice, then smiled warmly. "Grand Overseer, I'm Admiral Sarah Okafor of Earth. On behalf of humanity, we welcome you to our solar system. We'd be delighted to arrange diplomatic talks and cultural exchange programs. Perhaps we could start with a tour of your vessel, or would you prefer to visit Earth first? We have some excellent restaurants I could recommend." The bridge fell silent. Lieutenant Commander Wai Chen, the xenopsychology specialist, suppressed a smile behind his hand. Zilith's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, and the alien leaned closer to the screen. "Perhaps I was unclear. The consortium spans over 10,000 star systems. Our technology is millennia beyond yours. You will submit to integration or face immediate disciplinary measures." "Oh, we understood you perfectly," Okafor replied pleasantly. "And we'd love to learn about your consortium. But Earth isn't submitting to anyone. We're happy to discuss friendship, alliance, trade agreements, all the good stuff. In fact, we've prepared welcome packages for your delegation. Do you have any dietary restrictions we should know about?" The alien's skin darkened perceptibly. "This response is irregular. All previous Category 3 civilizations have accepted integration within the first communication." Lieutenant Chen whispered to the Admiral, "They've never encountered humans before." "Well," Admiral Okafor said brightly, "we're looking forward to showing you how we do things on Earth. When would you like to begin diplomatic discussions? We're flexible." The screen went blank abruptly. Lieutenant Chen turned to the Admiral. "That went well." "Did it?" Okafor asked. "By their standards, absolutely not. By ours, I think we just made history." Chen grinned. "They expected fear, submission, or at least awe. Instead, you invited them to lunch. What else was I supposed to do? Roll over?" Okafor shook her head. "Alert Earth. I think we have about 24 hours before they decide how to handle us." In the command chamber of the consortium vessel Inevitable Dominance, Grand Overseer Zilith addressed his senior officers. The massive room was designed to intimidate, with the Overseer's platform hovering 10 meters above the gathered officials. "The humans have refused standard integration protocols," Zilith announced, voice echoing through the chamber. First Subjugator Krell stepped forward. "Impossible. They have barely achieved system-wide travel capabilities. Their weapons are primitive. How could they refuse?" "They," Zillith seemed to struggle for words. They invited me to a restaurant. A murmur swept through the assembled officers. Second Diplomat Silura raised her three-fingered hand. Your Eminence, perhaps this is a cultural misunderstanding. Their response does not align with any known Category 3 behavioral patterns. It is not a misunderstanding, Zillith hissed. I explicitly stated the terms of integration. They responded with invitations for friendship and discussions, as if the consortium negotiates with pre-FTL species. Send a demonstration force, suggested Krell. Destroy one of their orbital installations. That usually clarifies the power dynamic. No, interrupted Silura. If they truly don't understand, that could provoke unnecessary resistance. Request allowed me to analyze their communication patterns. There is something unusual about these humans. They showed no fear whatsoever. All the more reason to instill some, Krell countered. Zillith raised a hand for silence. We have never failed to integrate a species. I will not be the first to report such a failure to the Central Consortium. Silura, you will leave a diplomatic mission to their planet. Make them understand their position. Krell, prepare a demonstration force, but await my command. Silura bowed. What if they continue to resist, Your Eminence? Zillith's skin darkened to nearly black. Then we will follow standard protocols for rebellious territories. Planetary subjugation has always been effective. Prepare a delegation shuttle. UN Secretary-General Elena Rodriguez had never expected her administration to handle first contact. As leaders from around the world gathered in the General Assembly Hall, her hands remained remarkably steady, though she hadn't slept in 36 hours. The aliens call themselves the Galactic Consortium, she explained to the assembled world leaders. According to Admiral Okuffer's report, they expect us to submit to integration without question. And our response? Asked the Chinese president. Admiral Okafor invited them to diplomatic talks. They seemed confused by this approach. The French president laughed suddenly. So humanity's first official response to an advanced alien civilization was essentially, let's do lunch. A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the room. It appears so, Rodriguez smiled. And now they're sending a diplomatic delegation to Earth. They'll land in 3 hours. What are their capabilities? The Russian president asked. Should we prepare for hostilities? Dr. James Montgomery, the newly appointed Xenoscience advisor, stepped forward. Their technology is significantly advanced. From what we've observed, their weapons could likely neutralize our military assets within hours. However, they seemed genuinely puzzled by our response, rather than hostile. They expected us to bow down immediately. Rodriguez added, we didn't. Now they don't know what to do with us. So what is our strategy? Asked the Indian Prime Minister. Rodriguez straightened. We treat them as equals, not as conquerors, not as gods. Just another civilization we're interested in knowing. We show them humanity at its best, curious, friendly, and absolutely unwilling to be subjugated. That's not much of a strategy, muttered someone. On the contrary, Dr. Montgomery interjected. It may be our best approach. If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done so already. The fact that they're sending diplomats suggests they want integration without conflict. Our refusal to be intimidated might be the one response they're not prepared for. Rodriguez nodded. We have prepared a welcome ceremony at the United Nations Plaza. Cultural representatives from every nation will be present. We will be respectful, diplomatic, and absolutely firm that Earth is not surrendering to anyone. And if they insist, asked the American president. Rodriguez smiled grimly. Then we show them what makes humans different from every other species they've encountered. Second Diplomat Silura had specialized in Category 3 integrations for 200 cycles. Usually, it was straightforward. Demonstrate overwhelming technological superiority, accept their submission, implement standard integration protocols. Occasionally, a show of force was necessary. Never in her career had she encountered a species that responded with hospitality. The diplomatic shuttle descended toward the blue planet. 6 consortium officials accompanied her, including cultural assimilation specialist Drav, who seemed particularly agitated. "This is highly irregular," Drav muttered, adjusting his ceremonial vestments for the 7th time. They should have prepared submission ceremonies, not, what did they call it, a welcome reception. "Maintain composure," Silara instructed. "Remember, this species has had no previous contact with advanced civilizations. They may not understand proper protocols." "Then we shall educate them," Drav replied stiffly. The shuttle landed in an open plaza surrounded by tall buildings. A large crowd had gathered behind barriers, and a smaller group of officials waited on a red carpet. Silara was surprised to see the humans showing curiosity rather than fear. Many held up small devices, presumably recording the historic moment. As the consortium delegation descended from the shuttle, a woman in formal attire stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, welcome," she said warmly. "I am UN Secretary-General Elena Rodriguez. We are honored by your visit and look forward to productive discussions." Silara followed protocol, not extending her hand as humans did, but offering a formal consortium greeting. "I am Second Diplomat Silara. I bring the terms of integration from the Galactic Consortium. Your world has been designated Territory 9742, eligible for Category 3 integration." Rodriguez smiled pleasantly. "We're eager to learn about your consortium and discuss potential relationships between our civilizations. We've prepared a welcome ceremony that showcases Earth's cultural diversity, followed by preliminary talks. Shall we begin?" Silara blinked her 4 eyes in sequence, the consortium expression of confusion. This was not proceeding according to any established protocol. The human should be presenting their submission, not planning entertainment. "Perhaps there is a misunderstanding," Silara said carefully. "Integration is not optional. The consortium has designated your world." "Yes, we understand your perspective," Rodriguez interrupted politely. "And we look forward to sharing ours. Cultural exchange is the foundation of any meaningful relationship between civilizations. Don't you agree?" Before Silara could respond, music began playing, and a procession of humans in varied traditional attire approached, performing dances and offering symbolic gifts. Consortium protocol had no procedure for this situation. Reluctantly, Silara signaled her delegation to accept the ceremony. As they were led toward a large building, humans approached from all sides, asking questions, offering greetings in various languages, some even requesting what they called selfies with the alien visitors. The consortium officials, accustomed to being treated with reverent fear, found themselves surrounded by curious, friendly humans who showed not the slightest inclination toward submission. Drav leaned toward Silara, his voice tight. "They're treating us like visitors, not representatives of their new governing authority." "I've noticed," Silara replied quietly. "Most concerning is their complete lack of fear. Perhaps they don't understand our capabilities." "No," Silara said slowly, watching a human child wave enthusiastically at her. "I believe they understand perfectly. They simply don't care." The human advantage. Grand Overseer Zilith received Silara's report with increasing disbelief. The human response defied all precedent in the consortium's 12,000-cycle history. They scheduled 17 cultural exchange events and 9 diplomatic discussions over the next Earth week, Silara reported. "They've offered us tours of their scientific facilities, cultural landmarks, and natural wonders. At no point have they acknowledged the integration protocols." "And your assessment?" Zilith demanded. "They are peculiar. When I explicitly stated that submission was not optional, their Secretary-General invited us to something called a baseball game. When cultural specialist Drav attempted to explain the benefits of consortium governance, they organized a spontaneous musical performance. It's as if they're deliberately misinterpreting our statements, or ignoring them," Zilith growled. "This insubordination cannot continue. Prepare the demonstration force. We will destroy one of their orbital habitats, something significant but not crucial. That should clarify their situation. With respect, Your Eminence, Silera cautioned, there is something about these humans that warrants further study before resorting to force. They've invited our scientists to visit their research facilities tomorrow. Perhaps we could learn what makes them so resistant. Zilith considered for a moment. 1 day. You have 1 day to discover their weakness. After that, we proceed with standard protocols for resistant integration. Dr. Sanjay Kapoor, director of the International Quantum Research Center, had never expected to be giving a tour to alien scientists. Yet here he was, leading 4 consortium researchers through Earth's most advanced physics laboratory. This is our quantum entanglement chamber, he explained cheerfully. We achieved stable macroscopic entanglement last year. Quite a breakthrough for us, though I imagine this is basic technology for your civilization. The lead consortium scientist, Vral, nodded condescendingly. Indeed, the consortium mastered quantum manipulation 20,000 cycles ago. Your achievement is commendable for a Category 3 species. Fascinating. Dr. Kapoor replied, genuinely interested. How did you overcome the decoherence problem? We're still working on extending entanglement duration beyond 17 minutes. Vral blinked, seemingly surprised by the question. Through advanced quantum field stabilizers, of course. Yes, but what's the underlying principle? We've been experimenting with topological insulators to create protected quantum states, but the energy requirements are prohibitive. The consortium scientist seemed momentarily flustered. These principles would be beyond your current scientific understanding. Dr. Kapoor smiled. Try me. To the alien's visible discomfort, Kapoor and his team proceeded to ask increasingly specific technical questions. When the humans began suggesting potential improvements to consortium technology, Vral abruptly announced it was time to move to the next facility. Similar scenes played out across Earth. At MIT, engineering students asked detailed questions about consortium propulsion systems. At CERN, physicists proposed experiments to test consortium particle theories. At a culinary institute in Paris, chefs invited consortium representatives to a tasting menu and discussed the biochemical compatibility of Earth and consortium foods. Nowhere did the aliens encounter the awe and submission they expected. Instead, they found themselves engaging with humans who treated them as equals, or occasionally, to their horror, as slightly backward in certain specific areas. In a secured conference room at the United Nations, Secretary General Rodrigues met with her crisis team. Admiral Okafor had returned from space duty and sat beside Dr. Montgomery and General Lai of the Global Defense Force. Our strategy is working, Rodrigues stated. The consortium delegation is completely off balance. But for how long? General Lee questioned. Our intelligence suggests they're growing frustrated. They have a demonstration force prepared, likely to destroy something significant, and show us their power. Admiral Okafor nodded. Standard intimidation tactic. They expect us to suddenly realize we're outmatched and submit. And when we don't? Rodrigues asked. Dr. Montgomery leaned forward. That's the fascinating part. Based on their behavior patterns, I believe the consortium has no contingency plan for this situation. They're following a standardized integration protocol that has worked on thousands of other species, but it's failing here, and they don't know why. So what happens when their playbook runs out? General Lee asked. That's what we need to prepare for, Rodrigues said grimly. Admiral, are our defensive measures in place? Such as they are, Okafor confirmed. We've distributed our limited orbital defenses to protect key satellites and the International Space Station. But let's be honest, if they decide to attack in force, we can't stop them through conventional means. Then we don't use conventional means, Rodrigues said. Dr. Montgomery, you mentioned something earlier about their communication systems. The xenoscientist nodded eagerly. Yes, our tech team has been analyzing their transmissions. The consortium uses a quantum entanglement communication network, incredibly advanced, but with a fascinating vulnerability. They've standardized it across their entire fleet with minimal security protocols. They never expected anyone to be able to access it, let alone manipulate it. And we can? General Lai asked skeptically. Not directly, Montgomery admitted. But we've identified entry points. If they initiate hostilities, we could potentially introduce interference. Admiral Okafor smiled slowly. Not a weapon, but a countermeasure. I like it. It's ready to deploy at your command, Montgomery confirmed. But it's a one-shot option. Once they realize what we've done, they'll adapt. Rodriguez nodded grimly. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. For now, we continue as planned. Be friendly, be curious, and absolutely refuse to be intimidated. The demonstration came the next day. A single consortium warship positioned itself near the moon and, without warning, fired a precision energy weapon that vaporized an uninhabited research outpost on the lunar surface. The blast was clearly visible from Earth, a deliberate message that couldn't be misinterpreted. Within minutes, Second Diplomat Silara requested an emergency meeting with Earth's leadership. In the UN Security Council chamber, Secretary General Rodriguez and representatives from major world powers faced the consortium delegation across a large table. The atmosphere was tense but controlled. The destruction of lunar outpost Artemis VI was a demonstration of consortium capability. Silara announced formally, "Your continued resistance to integration protocols is unprecedented and irrational. The Grand Overseer has authorized me to offer modified terms. You may maintain limited cultural autonomy in exchange for immediate resource allocation rights and governance submission." Rodriguez remained calm. "On behalf of Earth, I must express our disappointment in this destructive action. It seems inconsistent with the advanced civilization you claim to represent." The human response caught Silara off guard again. Not fear or anger, but disappointment, as if the consortium were misbehaving children. Nevertheless, Rodriguez continued, "We remain open to establishing diplomatic relations between equals. Threats will not change our position." Silara's skin darkened. "You misunderstand your situation. The consortium encompasses 10,000 worlds. Our technology is millennia beyond yours. Resistance is fascinating, actually," interrupted Dr. Montgomery. "We've been studying your technological approaches. Your quantum communication system, for instance, is quite elegant in its simplicity, though vulnerable to cascading decoherence if improperly modulated." Silara stared at the human scientist. "That is classified consortium technology." Montgomery smiled. "Is it? We've been analyzing your transmission patterns. Quite educational." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Silara's features. "This discussion is pointless. You have 24 hours to accept integration, or we will be forced to implement standard subjugation protocols." As the consortium delegation departed, General Lai turned to Rodriguez. 24 hours until they attack. Are we ready?" "As ready as we'll ever be," Rodriguez replied. "Activate the countermeasure program and send a message to Grand Overseer Zilith. I'd like to speak with him directly." On the command deck of the Inevitable Dominance, Grand Overseer Zilith received the human communication request with irritation. "They wish to surrender?" he asked. "They did not specify," his communications officer replied. "Put them through," Zilith ordered, settling onto his elevated command platform. Secretary General Rodriguez appeared on the main view screen, her expression composed and confident. "Grand Overseer Zilith, thank you for accepting my call. I wanted to speak with you directly before your deadline expires. Have you come to your senses regarding integration?" Zilith demanded. "I wanted to make sure you understand something about humans," Rodriguez said calmly. "Throughout our history, we have consistently resisted subjugation. We've fought wars against overwhelming odds. We've overthrown empires. We've survived catastrophes that should have ended our civilization. Not because we're the strongest or most advanced species, but because we're stubborn." Zilith's eyes narrowed. Is this supposed to impress me? Your primitive weapons cannot harm our vessels. We don't need to harm your vessels, Rodriguez replied. We just need you to understand that humans make terrible subjects, but excellent allies. We're offering friendship instead of submission. That's our final position. Then you have chosen planetary subjugation, Zilith stated flatly. Our forces will neutralize your defense capabilities, after which you will submit or face extinction. This conversation is over. As the communication ended, Zilith turned to his war council. Prepare the fleet, standard subjugation pattern. Target their defense installations, government centers, and power generation facilities. First Subjugator Krell saluted. It will be done, Your Eminence. Assault formations are prepared. These humans, Zilith said contemplatively, I almost admire their stubbornness. It's a pity they chose extinction over civilization. As the consortium fleet moved into attack formation, Admiral Okafor stood in Earth's Unified Defense Command Center, watching the holographic display with grim determination. They're deploying in standard attack formation, she observed, just as our intelligence suggested they would. Predictable, Dr. Montgomery noted. The consortium relies heavily on standardized protocols. They've probably used the same approach for thousands of years because it's always worked. Is the countermeasure ready? Rodriguez asked from her position at the central console. Montgomery nodded. Yes. The moment they initiate their attack sequence, we'll activate it. And if it doesn't work? General Lee asked. Then humanity goes down fighting, Okafor said simply. As we always have. On the display, the consortium vessels began moving in perfect synchronization, their weapons systems powering up. They're commencing the attack sequence, announced the tactical officer. Energy buildup detected in their forward weapon arrays. Rodriguez took a deep breath. Activate the countermeasure. Montgomery pressed a sequence of commands on his console. Countermeasure deployed. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, the consortium vessels began drifting out of formation. On the tactical display, their synchronized attack pattern dissolved into chaos. What did you do? Rodriguez asked, watching in amazement. Montgomery smiled. Remember how I mentioned their quantum communication system was vulnerable to cascading decoherence? We just introduced a specially modulated signal into their network. Right now, every ship in their fleet is receiving thousands of contradictory commands simultaneously. You crashed their system, Okafor said, impressed. Not exactly, Montgomery explained. We couldn't break their encryption. But we didn't need to. We just needed to create enough quantum noise to disrupt their coordination. They rely completely on centralized command and control. Without it, they can't execute complex operations. On the display, the consortium fleet had come to a complete standstill, individual vessels occasionally moving in random directions as their systems attempted to process the conflicting data. How long will it last? Rodriguez asked. Not long, Montgomery admitted. Their systems will reset eventually. But it demonstrates something important. They have weaknesses we can exploit. Rodriguez nodded. Open a channel to the Overseer's vessel. Grand Overseer Zilith was experiencing something entirely new in his 300-cycle career. Failure. Around him, his command crew worked frantically to restore their crippled systems. What is happening? He demanded for the third time. Some form of interference in the quantum communication network, his chief technician reported. We've never seen anything like it. It's as if all possible command variations are being transmitted simultaneously. Impossible, Zilith hissed. These primitives cannot affect our quantum systems. Incoming communication from Earth, announced his communications officer. Put it through, Zilith ordered, his skin darkening with rage. Secretary General Rodriguez appeared on screen. Grand Overseer, we hope this demonstration clarifies our position. We don't want to fight you, but we will not submit. Perhaps now would be a good time to discuss actual diplomatic relations. How dare you? Zilith seethed. This Interference is an act of war. No, Rodriguez corrected calmly. Destroying our lunar outpost was an act of war. This is self-defense, and a demonstration of what I was trying to explain earlier. Humans are resourceful, adaptable, and extremely resistant to bullying. Before Zilith could respond, Second Diplomat Silara stepped forward. Your Eminence, if I may. This situation is unprecedented. Perhaps traditional integration protocols are inappropriate for this species. You suggest we abandon integration. Zilith was aghast. I suggest we consider alternative approaches, Silara replied carefully. In 12,000 cycles of expansion, we have never encountered a species that responded like this. Perhaps there is something to learn here. Zilith stared at his diplomat, then at the human on the view screen. After a long moment, his skin slowly returned to its normal hue. Secretary General Rodriguez, he said finally, it seems your species presents unique challenges. Perhaps we should discuss these diplomatic relations you mention. Rodriguez smiled. We would be delighted. Shall we begin with a cultural exchange? We have so much to learn from each other. 3 months later, a new treaty was ratified in the United Nations General Assembly. The Earth Consortium Friendship and Cooperation Agreement established Earth as the first independent associate world in consortium history. In the diplomatic reception following the ceremony, Secretary General Rodriguez found herself speaking with Second Diplomat Silara, who had been appointed permanent ambassador to Earth. You realize you've changed the consortium forever, Silara remarked, sipping cautiously at a glass of champagne. For the first time, we're considering modifications to our integration protocols. Sometimes it takes an outsider perspective to inspire change, Rodriguez replied. Indeed, our scientists are still trying to understand how you managed to disrupt our quantum network. Such a thing was thought impossible. Rodriguez smiled. That's what makes humans special, Ambassador. We specialize in doing the impossible. Rodriguez smiled. That's what makes humans special, Ambassador. We specialize in doing the impossible. So I'm learning, Silara said. The consortium has existed for 12,000 cycles by following rigid protocols and standards. Meeting your species has been uncomfortable but enlightening. To new beginnings, Rodriguez offered, raising her glass. To new protocols, Silara agreed, carefully mimicking the human toast. As they looked out over the gathering, where humans and consortium representatives were engaged in animated conversation, Admiral Okafor joined them. The Consortium Council has approved our joint exploration initiative, she announced excitedly. We'll be sending mixed crews to unexplored systems starting next year. Remarkable, Silara commented. 6 months ago, we came to conquer your world. Now we're planning joint missions. That's another human specialty, Okafor replied with a smile. We make terrible enemies but excellent friends. In the grand scheme of the galaxy, Earth was still a newcomer, its technology centuries behind the consortiums in many areas. But as they watched humans eagerly exchanging ideas with consortium scientists, engineers, and diplomats, it was clear that humanity had contributed something the ancient galactic power had never expected to find on a small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system, a new perspective. And in a universe of standardized protocols and predetermined outcomes that made all the difference.